In Pro Tools, generally speaking, there are many ways to do the same type of activity. If you know how to do them, you can use keyboard shortcuts and you can do things a little bit more efficiently. But yeah, there's usually more than one way to accomplish something. Today I want to show you how you can have different functionality over the zoom controls. So the zoom controls are located right here in your taskbar. And the easiest way to think of it is these left and right buttons are going to zoom out and in with your whole project, these little increments, right? Now, right next door here is what's called Waveform Zoom, and that's going to take a look at this waveform right here, and it's going to blow those up vertically or minimize those. Now, you might think that because the waveform is changing that, well, the volume must be changing as well. That's not actually the case. So this has nothing to do with volume or amplitude. It's simply zooming in on the waveform itself. That way, if you had something that was recorded at a lower level, and you need to be able to see the actual peaks and valleys to do some surgical editing or something like that, then you can zoom in on those waveforms. If I take this spot here, for example, where it doesn't look like there's really much happening, but I can see just barely that there are some waveforms there, I can zoom in on the waveform zoom and increase those so I can work with them. Okay, and also you might jump into a Pro Tools session and notice that your waveforms are huge like that, and it might be because someone that was working on something before you had this waveform zoom, really cranked up. Okay, the next one over here on your zoom controls is actually called Midi Zoom, and you can see that in addition to the audio content on these two tracks, I have some MIDI content. That's these little bars here on my instrument track. So just like the waveform view, I can sort of do a MIDI zoom and sort of blow up on those MIDI notes and all that information that is provided for me in this MIDI track. So that can be pretty useful if you're working with virtual instruments and things of that nature. Right underneath the zoom controls are numbers 1 through 5, and those are just predetermined Pro Tools default settings. So if I just scroll through those, as I go, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So those are just predetermined Pro Tools zoom levels, but they can pretty helpful if you want to just jump to a certain level of zoom. And then finally, I've gone over this before, but part of our regular edit tools is the zoom tool, this magnifying glass. And let's say that I want to just zoom in on this green and blue section of audio content. I can make a selection and really just blow up on those. Okay, so that's just making sure that all the things that I had selected there fit my screen as full as possible. In addition to the zoom controls here that I have to access with my mouse, I want to draw your attention to the keyboard shortcuts for this. Now keep in mind you have to have this little box here in the right hand corner of your edits window. It says A to Z. You have to have that engaged and turned yellow. This is what's called keyboard focus, and it allows for some keyboard shortcuts to happen without the use of modifier keys like Command, Option, and Shift. With keyboard focus turned on like that, based on the location of my cursor, I can just hit the T button to zoom in and the R button to zoom out. I find that extremely useful. I'm always working in keyboard focus mode. That way, wherever I drop my cursor, and just my left hand sort of hovers over the R and T buttons, and I can do that. Okay, just a couple more keyboard shortcuts for this. Let's say that I wanted to make a selection and make it fit my screen entirely. I can make the selection, and I'm going to hit Option F for full. Similar to what that the zoom tool over here is doing. Just a keyboard shortcut to make that happen so I don't actually have to switch back and forth to the actual tool itself. And then let's say that I want to, I'm done working on this particular section, and I want to go back and I want to see my entire session. I'm going to go Option A for all. And that sort of zooms out to show you everything that you've got in your timeline. Okay, so once again, I might take this entire selection right here and Option F for full. And then to go back and see everything in my session in entirety, I go Option A. So you can see in Pro Tools, there's a bunch of different ways to accomplish the same thing. Those are some easy ways to sort of navigate through your session using Zoom tools. Hopefully that was helpful.